Hello, welcome back. This is module 2 in the course for Excel Analyzing Visualize Data. And in this module, I will introduce you to something really important, which is the Excel data model. The Excel data model was actually initially in Excel 2010 was introduced together with an add-in to Excel called Power Pivot that you probably have heard about. It has the data model in it. In the next version of Excel 2013, the model was actually absorbed into Excel, and now it's part of Excel itself, although the add-in has still its role, and we're going to see it. And going forward, the Excel data model will take a more and more important part in everything that's to do with data in Excel. So we'll look into a model that I prepared. In this module, we're not going to be to see exactly how did I build the model, but this will come in subsequent modules. So let's dive into it and see this example. When you switch to Excel, what you see is actually an Excel that looks empty. There's nothing in the grid, there's only one sheet, and everything is empty, but it's not really empty because the data is already here. And to see the data, I can either from the data ribbon, click on Manage Data Model. This is new for 2016. You won't see it in previous versions. Or from the ribbon for the Power Pivot add-in, you can also switch to the Manage window. And this is an independent window, this Manage, that is used to see what's in the data model. The data model, as you can see, is made of a series of tables. Each one of them is a table. It looks a little bit like as if it's Excel with the grid, but it's not. There's no formulas just in the rows. Every row has the same data type, has a name, and there's no exceptions. It's a little bit like tables in Excel, but more strict. And now tables can be have, as I said, in this case, the largest table only has about 60,000 rows, but we'll see later models with like 2 million rows. And we can watch it this way as tables, or I can switch to another view by clicking here, the diagram view in the ribbon. And I will just make it a little bit smaller so all the tables will fit. And here you see like a diagram of all the tables and these lines connecting them, which represent relations, which are very important, the relationships between tables. This may look a little bit familiar to you if you've ever used Access. Now, so we see the tables and we see the lines, which, as I said, represent relationships. Every relationship has a direction, goes from one table that's in here, it says 1, and the other table, it says an asterisk. This represents the fact that these relationships are one-to-many relationships. So, for example, this fact internet sales, which is the main table in this model that contains the actual sales transactions, has many rows. For each row in the DIM product, which contains a row for each product. So one product, many rows in the fact internet sales table. The same with customers, many rows in the sales, many transactions. The customer have purchased multiple times, so it will have multiple rows in the internet sales, and one row representing this customer in the customer table. In this example, there is a table called DIM Geography, which actually represents cities. So a customer lives in a city. A city has many customers, so there's a one-to-many relationship between customers and the city and the DIM Geography. So the same table, DIM customers, play the role of a 1 against the fact internet sales and the role of a many against the DIM Geography. And relationships are what make this model behave as 1. I can use this model to, so a pivot table in Excel can use this model as 1, as if it was one table, and we'll see it in a moment. Let's switch back to the data view and look at the content of the fact internet sales. So this table has some information about the product that was purchased, the order date, the customer, the quantity, the list price, and the product cost for each unit of product that was purchased. In order to do some analysis, I obviously miss something here. I miss the actual revenue for this line, which is the order quantity times the list price. So actually, I can add calculated columns to this table that use other columns in the table. So I just go to an empty column and I start typing an expression in a very similar way to what I will do in Excel. I click equals, and I click on the order quantity, asterisk, or times, list price, enter. Now this will be now calculated for each row in the table. And now I can also go and give it a proper name. Let's say it's revenue. So now I have the revenue calculated. And if I want the cost, I will also go and create myself a cost. And I will say order quantity times product cost. And again, I will have a calculated column. So by having these calculated columns, I've completed the data that I need in this table, and I can switch back to Excel. I will just go back to Excel, and in Excel, I will say Insert Pivot Table. This dialog is a little bit different in Excel 2016 than it was in previous versions, because I have this very important button that says Use this workbook data model. So the default for Excel to create a pivot table or a pivot chart, if there is already a model in this file, is to use the data model as a basis for the pivot. So I click OK, and now I have my pivot. Now, if you look on the right side, you'll see that this is not very it's not like any other pivot that you've seen before, because it's contained of the many tables that were in this model. In each one, there are multiple columns. I can open it. And I can start dragging and using columns from any one of these tables. For example, I have the revenue. I can click it, drag it to the values area, and I see the values coming here. If I want to take, let's say, the country, put it on rows, and I go to another table here, which is about product categories, and I take the product category and drag it to. So now I have a full pivot, and I also can create in the same way. I can create from, let's say, from the year. I want to create a slicer. So I do create a slicer, and the slicer is now connected to the pivot and is able to slice the pivot. So I had my model with many tables with relationships. The fact that I'm clicking here and I'm filtering on a year, because the year is coming from a table called date, and this table is connected or related to the main table, it means that when I'm clicking here, it actually applies the filter to the main table, and I see only rows that correspond to the year 2006. In the same way that this number here for Australia bikes showed just data, the sum of data for Australia and bikes. So I will close here this part, and we'll continue in the next video. Actually, it will be a direct continuation of where we stopped, and I will show you a little bit more of the options of what can I do with this model. So I'll see you on the next part of this module.